in February or March, nobody even knew who this guy was.
Yep.
And then in April, suddenly in April and May and June, he's getting offered by every blue blood program in the country. And then he comes to Kansas, and then you continue to hear about his athleticism and his shooting ability. And then, you get into now closer to the season, and here we are now with the season around the corner, and all of a sudden he's going to be a starter. Pay heed all who enter, and beware of this podcast. That's right. This is the Pay Heed podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer, and of course, I'm here with Kevin Flaherty. We're brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner in all things possible, member FDIC. If you have not already, please go ahead and subscribe on Apple and Spotify for listening on audio. And also, you can find our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN, where you'll definitely want to be subscribed because that's where we do our live reaction shows, including coming up this Saturday for the KU K-State football game. We're going to be live over on YouTube channel, probably about 2:45-ish. The game, it's 11 a.m. kickoff, so within 10, 15, 20 minutes after the conclusion of the game, you can expect us to be live on a YouTube channel. So come join us. Come hang out with us. Share your thoughts. Join the conversation with many other great KU fans. Win or lose, we'll be there. So it may be a bit of a sad episode, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Hopefully not. By the way, if you want to hear more discussion of KU and K-State, I encourage you to check out our previous show that we recorded, breaking down the matchup. You can also check out what Brandon McAnderson had to say from the Jayhawk Radio Network ahead of KU and K-State. That's also, you can find that on our feed as well. So tons of content relating to the KU K-State game already available to you if you are looking to get more amped up and have a little bit better knowledge heading into the game against K-State on Saturday. On today's show, we're going to be talking KU basketball, actually, because yesterday, Wednesday, as we record this on Thursday morning, yesterday was Big 12 Media Days up in Kansas City. Kevin and I were both there to hear a little bit about what KU had to say and so on and so forth, and Bill Self and the players, and get a chance to get a feel for the rest of the conference. So we're going to have some audio from both Bill Self and Travis Goff coming up later on in the show of what everything they had to say. But first off, Kevin, Big 12 Media Days, I feel like, are always a bit chaotic, even more so now, I think, because there's 16 teams. They've got it broken up into one half of the conference goes in the morning, the other half in the afternoon. So it's kind of hectic in terms of, getting a chance to maybe hear or see all the players and coaches. But overall, did you have any big takeaways from this year's Media Day?
It's really hectic if you're covering one of the local schools, too, because some of the schools that are located further away, if there are any media members that come to cover them, it isn't very many, and so you and I talked, and we'll have a video up on the channel. I had a chance to talk with Scott Drew kind of one-on-one because nobody was talking to Scott Drew when I went over there, and we're talking about a coach who won a national title in the last 5 years. And yet at the same time, Nick, you had pretty good position for Bill Self in a video that we'll show here in a little bit, but just an army of people around Bill Self. And so just the difference in opportunities in terms of how you're able to maybe talk to some players or some coaches and not others. One of the interesting things, though, Nick, I thought Kelvin Sampson said in his breakout session, and then kind of repeated it up on the podium, was calling Kansas the bell cow of the conference. And I've gotten kind of a wide variety of comments after tweeting that out. Some people have been like, yeah, he's absolutely right. And other people have been like, no, it's Houston's league now, or whatever else. And I think the point was just that he was highly complimentary of what Kansas has done over the entirety of the Big 12. And to kind of paint that picture out a little bit, Nick, Kansas has never in the history of the Big 12 gone 3 straight years without winning the conference. Like, that's crazy to say. It is. Only twice has Kansas failed to do it over a 2-year period. And we just happen to be kind of on one of those 2-year periods where Houston came in, they're 2 years in the league, they've won the title. KU hasn't won the last 2 years. KU did win the year before that and, the year before that. So I think he was just basically saying, hey, we've won the conference 2 in a row. Like, that's awesome. Hooray. We love our program. But just sort of that Kansas over the history of the Big 12 has been such a player in it. He complimented Bill Self, and he complimented, the KU fans and the atmosphere at Allen Fieldhouse, the history, the traditions, and all of those things. And I feel like where I wanted to take that, Nick, and I wanted to ask you about it, I'm not saying Kansas is going to win the conference this year. We've talked about the fact that KU's got a brutal schedule. KU has a roster that, maybe a little flawed in some areas. I still think it's pretty good. I still think it's a roster that can win at a high level and win at a high level in March. But did you kind of get a feeling that people were treating Kansas a little sort of like Kansas is back, like Kansas is going to look different this year than maybe they have the last couple years? Bill Self, talked about obviously the improvement in athleticism and length and the way the guys look, but that was kind of one of my takeaways. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to gauge because, like you mentioned, from the media perspective, it is both a bit of a blessing and a curse that this takes place in Kansas City. It's obviously a great opportunity for some more local media like myself and you to have a chance to go. If this was in Dallas or, God forbid, Las Vegas, or what Brett Yormark wanted at one point to have it in New York,
Tijuana.
We would not have been there. But because it's in Kansas City, because it's more of a local event, we're able to go there. But as we were able to go, so is basically all of the Kansas City TV stations, all of the Topeka TV stations. Like, it's a cluster of people. And so sometimes I think it's hard to gauge exactly like where sort of the pulse of what people are expecting is, because Jerome Tang and K-State draw a huge crowd. Why? Because Manhattan is close enough that all of their local media can go. Obviously, we just talked about with KU and what they can have. So, as you said, Houston didn't have that much. Baylor didn't have that. These other schools that are much farther away that maybe those local media outlets don't travel, a bunch of people to go cover an event like this. So that makes it, I think, in some ways a little bit difficult, I think, to fully get a pulse for maybe where people think the conference is at, or maybe who the favorites are, because there was, 25 people around Bill Self's table trying to ask questions over the course of a 15-minute period. And so it makes it a little bit hard, I guess, to gauge. But yeah, Kelvin Sampson, he had an overall very interesting day, Kevin, because he went on a couple random diatribes and you kind of outlined what he said about KU.
Yeah, he loves those mid 1960s Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, there was kind of a weird
time at the podium. He asked the assembled media to name the starting lineup from that team.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird moment, I guess, because I'm a younger guy. I don't know, some of the older guys like you, Kevin, maybe enjoyed it more, but I don't know. It was a little weird to me. But yeah, overall, I think that's a reasonable takeaway to have, what you said about KU feeling like they're being back, right? I mean, obviously, when you have the presumptive number one pick in the upcoming NBA draft, I think that expectation sort of comes with it. Like, okay, this is supposed to be a team that's going to be pretty good. And there was a lot of eyes on Darren Peterson, obviously. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see how things play out. I think what you said about this roster for KU is fair. And I would also add that, this also could be a roster where, let's say you run into a team in January and you look really bad, but then in March or February, if you play them again later in the year, you look really good, right? That's a possibility as well. There could be a bit of a learning curve for this roster over the course of not just conference play, but even the start of the year. When you look at what the schedule they have, right? They start the year off with some very difficult games right off the bat. So including coming up on Friday against Louisville in an exhibition in which Bill Self also revealed his starting five for that. So that was kind of my other big takeaway, Kevin, was, obviously I think over the course of the spring and into the summer, and as the recruitment of Cole Rosario kind of ratcheted up, and he seemed to be on this real meteoric rise over the course of the summer. I thought, okay, when Kansas ultimately got him to commit, I thought that's a really nice pickup, right? Like, he seems like a guy that could be a real explosive energy type player. He sort of had been known as being a really, really strong shooter and developing that over the course of the spring and summer. But I mean, as we sat here in June and July, I don't think I had any anticipation that he was going to be a starter for Kansas.
Yeah.
I don't even anticipate that I expected him to be a starter later in the year, right? Like, in my mind, I was always sort of envisioning him as, okay, this is a really strong, maybe sixth or seventh guy that can provide you with some real athleticism and shooting off the bench. Great. Awesome. Like, he's a freshman. I'm not going to put those expectations on him. But then now we've heard Bill Self talking about him more and more. We've heard other guys talking about him more and more as being this great shooter. And then Bill Self just comes out and flat out says it at Media Day on Wednesday, like, oh, yeah, by the way, Cole's going to start on Friday in the exhibition against Louisville. And then basically didn't say it outright, but basically it was assumed that, okay, he's then also going to be starting in the first game of the season and be a regular starter. That I don't want to say that was really caught me off guard, but it was a bit surprising, I think, now I will say, I think Jaden Dawson's been a bit banged up. He was probably the other guy that you would expect that I maybe expected would be in that role. And he's, I think, dealing with injury. So that's maybe part of it too. But yeah, the rise of Cole Rosario Kevin, in February or March, nobody even knew who this guy was.
Yep.
And then in April, suddenly in April and May and June, he's getting offered by every blue blood program in the country. And then he comes to Kansas, and then you continue to hear about his athleticism and his shooting ability. And then, you get into now closer to the season, and here we are now with the season around the corner, and all of a sudden he's going to be a starter. So that was a big takeaway for me was, wow, okay, that obviously means something, right? Because obviously with Darren Peterson, sure, he's got the expectations. You're bookmarking him as being a day one starter as a freshman, but I certainly wasn't expecting two true freshmen to be starting for Kansas on opening night when they play Green Bay, and that seems to be like it's going to be the case now.
Yeah, it feels, somewhat similar, and I realize the circumstances are different because he was an international guy, but it feels somewhat similar to Johnny Furphy, right? Like when Kansas got Furphy, it was kind of an add-on, like, yeah, hey, he'll factor in at some point, he'll be in the rotation, and then, by mid-season or a little bit after, all of a sudden Johnny Furphy is, your no doubt starter. He's an important part of your, and so it seems like a pretty similar, like quick rise relative to expectations that maybe fans had. And it's funny because I think we've done this long enough, Nick, and we've covered Bill Self long enough to know that Bill Self speaks in code sometimes. And so there are some things that he'll say about a player that lets you know that either he's not super high on a guy or he is really high on a guy. Steals extra possessions is one of the things that he can say about a guy that leads you to believe that this guy is, if not already in the Bill Self circle of trust, that he's a guy that's working into that. That was one of the biggest things he said about Cole. He's like, oh yeah, he's a shooter, good athlete, but he's a great offensive rebounder. He steals extra possessions, whatever else. Darren Peterson actually said, hey, Cole Rosario steals extra possessions. And so I think the other part of this, you mentioned Dawson being banged up over the last, little while. I like this because I do think that Jaden Dawson's best fit on this roster, I've thought all along, was kind of a Curtis Jones type fit at Iowa State, where he's your sixth man who can come off the bench and kind of flamethrow a little bit. And I think that when you look at that starting lineup, there's a lot of length, a lot of athleticism. If Rosario is making shots, I do think that you probably have enough floor spacing out there with that group. And then you bring in a guy like Jaden Dawson shooting off the bench. You bring in another athlete like Elmarco Jackson into that group off the bench. I start to think that the picture fills out a little bit better at that point. And so that was a little bit of a surprise to hear Self, sort of come out and just say it like, oh yeah, this is the lineup. But at the same time, I do think that when we're looking at, we may watch Kansas play Duke with this lineup and be like, man, that didn't look the best against a really good Duke team. We may watch this same lineup in February and say, this is a terrific group. They work together really well, and all of the chemistry and all of the different things, they plug in pretty well. I think the other thing that was interesting, we were talking about expectations. I feel like Kansas fan expectations are a little low on this team. And I've actually had Kansas fans say, things like, well, we were picked sixth or whatever else. KU was picked number one in the country a year ago. Like, this isn't a perfect, thing. And the other thing, Nick, is like, there are 6 Big 12 teams that are currently ranked in the AP poll. And so if any of those teams wins the conference, if that's Kansas at number 6, if that's Arizona from up a little bit, or if that's Houston as the favorite, none of that would surprise anybody. If you went to Kelvin Sampson and said to him, hey, Kansas is going to win the conference this year, I don't think that he would sit there and be like, no, there's no way. I think that that's the other thing that kind of stood out was it wasn't one of those things where Kansas is on the edge of the contending teams at number 6, which I think is the way KU fans feel. It more felt like coaches overall there, players overall felt like there is a really strong clump of teams, and out of that clump of teams is going to come the conference champion, is going to come teams that can reach the Elite Eight and beyond, and Kansas is in that group.
By the way, just I'll spoil a little bit because Bill Self says it later on when we get to that clip, but the other remainder of the starting 5, we talked about Cole Rosario, Darren Peterson, obviously, Floyd Badunga, Trey White, Melvin Council, and Cole Rosario. That was the starting 5 that Bill Self basically gave for Friday's exhibition, and I think it's probably safe to assume that would be your starting 5 to start the season, at least for the time being. And he had previously talked about sort of the 3-man at the guard spot with Darren Peterson, Melvin Council, and Marco Jackson. Then you figure, Cole Rosario, Jaden Dawson probably in that spot. And then that leaves you with Trey White rotating with Floyd Badunga, Bryson Tiller, and Paul Mbia is probably sort of what you're looking at.
So maybe getting the odd here or there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of where things are at right now, I guess. Heading into the exhibition on Friday, which is going to be televised, by the way. I believe it's on the ACC network if you're interested in watching that on Friday night ahead of the KU football game. But yeah, should be interesting. This is a team that is going to need to hit the ground running a little bit. Otherwise, they might be suffering some early losses to start the year. And that's wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, I don't think, if you're learning from it, right? So that's something to keep an eye on as well. But yeah, looking forward to the season, and we're entering into they call it the crossover period, Kevin, where you still have football going with basketball getting started as well. So we're going to do our best to cover it all from here as well with some live post-game shows. We probably won't be going live after every KU basketball game, but certainly for the major ones, so the big ones, you can expect us to be live on our YouTube channel as well at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. So keep an eye out for that on our YouTube channel also, and stay subscribed. You can share your comments, share your thoughts, all that good stuff as well. Okay, as promised, we are going to have some different audio coming up from Big 12 Media Day on Wednesday from Bill Self and Travis Goff. But first, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll hear from Bill Self. That's coming up next.
Chiefs Kingdom, I have got a question for you. What is your favorite touchdown? Well, for me, I can confidently say that my favorite touchdown, it's the next one, because with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, every touchdown could bring you closer to cashing in. From the first touchdown score to anytime touchdown props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. From spreads to money lines, same-game parlays, regular parlays, you want it, DraftKings has got it. Here's the best part. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. I use DraftKings Sportsbook, and you should too. Your team hitting pay dirt pays out to you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Minimum minus 500 odds required. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
This is the Payee Podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer with Kevin Flaherty. We are talking all things Kansas basketball on today's show after Big 12 Media Day. Again, if you want to hear and see more from our thoughts on KU football heading into the game against K-State, highly encourage you to check out our show with Brandon McAnderson from the Jayhawks Radio Network earlier in the week. You can also find our preview show of the game as well on our feed, so be sure to check those out. We're going to hear from Bill Self in just a moment, but first, calling all Chiefs fans. You could be on the field at the 50-yard line inside the GEHA field for the official coin toss at the Chiefs home game this season. Visit Chiefs.com/GEHA now. Enter to win for a chance to be on the field for a once-in-a-lifetime view of the pregame coin toss. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at Chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is a proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, Kevin and I were at Big 12 Media Day on Wednesday. We had a chance to hear everything Bill Self had to say when speaking with the media. Here's what the KU head coach had to say.
Bill, for your exhibition on Friday against Louisville, is that going to be the same sort of like two halves thing, or are you going to do situational stuff like that?
I think we're going to play it like a game. So at least that's how we're approaching it. Pat and I haven't discussed it to do it different. So, if maybe we could talk about it today or tomorrow, but I'm going into it thinking it's going to be played like a game. So.
Devonta and Peterson coming into this league, cleared cut 1-2, depending on who you look at, one's 1, one's 2. It's been a while since this league's had that kind of hype and that kind of talent come in, two freshmen like that.
I don't know that I can remember two in the same class. But, I mean, hey, we did have a run where, Durant's at Texas, Beasley at K-State, and Griffin at Oklahoma back-to-back-to-back years. And so the league's had elite players that are potential high draft picks. There's no doubt about that. And then, of course, we had Wiggs and Joel, that went 1 and 3. But I don't know that I can remember in a high school class that two players are coming into to this league in such a competitive high school class, because there's other good players out there besides these two that have the chance to be a first-team All-American type guy.
Coach, how does DP's talent stack up to the other NBA players, the other All-Americans you've coached here?
Well, his talent is, it's as good as any of them. His IQ, basketball-wise, his feel, I think stacks up with the best that we've ever had here, regardless of talent. He's a terrific prospect, and he's also a terrific player. And sometimes it can be a little bit different because maybe the player hasn't caught up to the prospect yet. But he's in my opinion ready to have a big year. Is it too much pressure for him? I don't think so, because for him to go where he wants to go, he's going to deal with that on a daily basis anyway. So we're obviously excited about him, but he's well beyond his years.
How does he take to coaching, Coach? How does he take to it?
How does he take it to coaching?
Yeah.
Oh, I think he wants to be coached. I think players still yearn for discipline. They want to be coached. They want to get better. They want to be told what makes them better. The great ones all want that, and he's certainly a guy that he wants to be pushed each and every day, and he wants to be told what he can do better, not told what he already does good.
Bill, how's he made the team around him better? Just with the distribution, or just put them in place to score better?
Well, I think that the one thing that's been very, very positive for us so far is he's approached this in a very mature way, where he's let his talent and his commitment do his talking for him. So he's got everyone's respect. And everybody knows, because they've seen enough, that when he's good, guess what? I'm better too, because they can play off of him. And when he's aggressive and playing like that, he'll make the game easier for others. But on the flip side of that, the others can make the game easier for him. And just an example, if people want to take the ball out of his hands and they trap him, well, there is an opportunity to play 4-on-3 behind that. So in many ways. And so guys understand that that's an opportunity for me. Getting the ball to him on time, on target, is probably something that they take more serious maybe than in the past because they think that can lead to an immediate good result. So I think they fit together pretty well. Now, granted, never played together over an extended period of time, but by January, I would think this could be a team that could be chemistry could be pretty good.
Coach, how different is this time period compared to the last couple of years? And obviously the number ones the past couple of years, but also just knowing what you had coming back. How much of a learning process is different than years past for you and for the guys?
Well, I don't think we actually know what we have yet. So if that's, till the lights come on and you see, well, how does this freshman handle this pressure and this and that? Last year we were probably more capable to handle that moment, but probably not as capable from an athletic standpoint to actually play near as athletic as we wanted to play. So my opinion, this year's team is more pleasing for me to watch, but it still remains to be seen if this year's team early in the season can play to the maturity level that a young team will have to play to. But it's a fun group. It's a fun group to watch.
Obviously, you had high expectations for Darren, but on or off the court, is there anything that surprised you about what he's brought to your team?
I don't know that there's been anything that surprised me about what he brings to the table, except I don't even think that I realized that his ability to feel the game and put the game in slow motion is as good as what it is. I've said this many times, the younger you are, the game's played in fast forward. And the older you get, the slower the game becomes, so it becomes played in slow motion. And he's young, but he still has the game. To me, he sees it in slow motion.
Coach, who is an X factor that we need to be looking out for this upcoming year?
Well, I think there's several, but Trey White is a good player. Bryson Tiller is a good player. Cole Rosario is a good player. He's just young, and same with Bryson. But to me, Darren will do what he does. We kind of know about Flory and that stuff. Melvin Council. We got a bunch of guys that really need to have big years for us to complement, basically Flory and Darren. But those ones I just mentioned, I think, have the potential to have, really big years.
What about Cole Rosario's game is most Big 12 ready for you?
I'd say physically athletic. He's a Big 12 athlete from a physical standpoint and from a vertical standpoint. What he needs to do to be Big 12 ready is he needs to be there from a scoring standpoint too. We need him to score and make shots, and because there's some things that he can do that you can't coach. But that's one thing that for us to be good, we got to have somebody that can do it.
Bill, you talked about Cole Rosario's rise and how well he's played. Do you see him as a guy that can potentially contend for a starting spot as a freshman?
Do I think Cole can?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he'll start on Friday. There's no doubt about that. Now whether or not it stays that way, but as of today, he's a starter for us as of today. Yeah.
Coach, what's different about starting this year rather than starting years in the past? What's something different you found?
I would say, depending if you're talking about last year or over time, I would say a difference this year would be the unknown. I don't really know what to expect yet. When you're returning 4 starters off a team that won 30, you have a better idea what to expect, and we don't have that. Everything's new to everybody. Even Flory has a different role. We returned one guy that played in the game last year, or scored a basket last year. So I think the unknown is different, but I also think the excitement of the unknown is also refreshing too.
Coach, what do you think about G League players being able to be in the transfer portal and apply for eligibility?
I don't want to knock it from a standpoint that who knows, we may be recruiting one before it's all said and done. But I got to know the rule better because I didn't know it was just limited to G League. I thought a guy could get cut in the NBA and be eligible for college. My personal opinion is I have no idea what we're doing. What are we doing? So we're going to go recruit. We're going to call NBA teams and G League teams to find out who potentially be available, and that's who we're going to recruit now, as opposed to high school kids or even portal kids. And what is the actual rule? Does it have to fit within a 5-year window? Can he go to college first? I don't really understand it well enough to comment too much, other than why wouldn't everybody declare for the draft? If it doesn't work out, go back to college. Why? I mean, if it is the way that I think it is, which it may not be because I don't understand it well enough yet, it's going to open up some unintended consequences that we're going to have to deal with for sure.
Coach, what has impressed you most about the leadership of Brent Yormark?
Aggressiveness. Not sitting back and letting the status quo be the norm. Always trying to push the envelope. No matter where we're at, how do we get better? That's what I think, from my standpoint, that has impressed me most about our leadership at the league level, in that men's basketball has been really good, but the whole deal is how do we get better?
Coach,
So that'd be my statement.
I saw a picture of you talking to the KU football team the other day, Sunflower Showdown week. What was said in that, and what do you think of the game this weekend?
Considering I'm an expert in football, I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be highly competitive. I think there'll be a ton of energy. I think the place will be jacked. All those things, and I believe that the correct team will prevail, and that would be the one from Lawrence, Kansas, this weekend. But I think it should be fun, and rivalry games is why you do it. It's why you come to certain schools to play in these games, and so I will be envious of everybody participating in that game day, because that's why you coach and that's why you win.
How much will you adapt the way that you guys play offensively, not just with the high usage star like Darren, but maybe less traditional post presence than you've had in the past?
We've actually, to be honest with you, we've gotten away from the traditional post presence in the last decade compared to what it was when I first got to school there. I mean, we played inside out all the time. I don't think we're doing that near as much, but we'll do it even less this year, probably because we don't have Hunt. So I think more of an open floor, hopefully driving lanes situation that will create for better perimeter play as opposed to standard watch. I at least I'm hopeful with that.
All right, Coach, we're ready for you.
Bill,
Let me hang on.
Who will start Friday?
I would say, as of today, Cole, Darren, Trey, Melvin, and Floyd.
That was Kansas head coach Bill Self meeting with the media at Big 12 Media Day. As you could see, it was a little bit of a chaotic scene there with all of the different media members. We love the TV people, but they have giant cameras, Kevin. And when you have a bunch of giant cameras, it makes issue. It makes causes issue.
Cameras on tripods that spread way out, and up a lot of space.
Yeah, so it was a bit chaotic, but we got it done. Thank you to Bill Self for everything he had to say as well. So we also had a chance to hear from Travis Goff, and we're going to get to that coming up next.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
This is the Payee Podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer here with Kevin Flaherty. I would highly encourage you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe Apple, Spotify, and on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN for all the great content we have coming your way and that we've already done, because it's crossover season. It's KU basketball. It's KU football. And you'll want to stay up to date as best you can, and you can do that by subscribing to the podcast and also on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN, so that you know when we do our live shows over the course of football season and into basketball season as well. As also part of Big 12 Media Days, we had a chance to hear from Kansas Athletic Director Travis Goff, some of his thoughts on basketball. Also had some football discussion in there from Travis Goff ahead of the KU K-State game. Here's everything that the KU AD had to say.
The men and women this year, their prospects.
I'm excited about both of them. I mean, the women, obviously with a returner like they have at the helm with Samaya, bringing in an incredible freshman class, the youth movement layered onto the veterans. I just think that's a heck of a formula. I'm super fired up about Kansas women's basketball, and I think the recruiting trajectory and the things Brandon has going, that staff have going, are really stacking well. I think patience has been the right approach. I think the things they've already done and achieved have shown us glimpses of what it can be. Crowds in Allen Fieldhouse have demonstrated, again, trajectory on the growth of women's basketball and in Lawrence. And I don't want to say I couldn't feel better, but I'm pretty close to couldn't feel better about where that one's heading. Obviously on the men's side, right, it's a little bit different theme. If you said, well, what's the preseason expectations and all those good things. It's been a couple interesting years in which we've learned through some experiences. And I guess I would say it this way. I think it's a good formula when you have the best version of Bill Self that certainly I feel like in my time that we've had, based on all the other variables and certainly his health, he's doing incredible. He looks great, feels good. His energy, his focus, his passion, all the things that can be distracted from real health challenges are not there. One, I love the makeup of the staff. I always have, undoubtedly, but I think the layers in which have been added to that have fit really, really well. I think the needs have been addressed, whatever those might have been. But if you think about Jock and Tony as additions to the staff, boy, I think they rounded out just really, really well. And I think the roster's exciting. I mean, I think we're seeing where these late pieces, the additions in the summer, in Paul and in Cole in particular, finished it out strong. Obviously having, the top dog and Darren and all the ways in which he will command the game with the ball in his hand, every possession, I think is really unique. You can have a dominant player, but not always in that position. So excited about, I think, some balanced expectations and a team that really believes they've got a chance to be special.
Travis, you joked in the summer about if Bill's round of golf was cleared by doctors and that kind of thing, and it was a good joke. But
did I joke about that?
Yeah, in the room there, in the media room.
Yeah.
But do you have to keep an eye on that? Do you have to check in with them about any of that stuff, or is that not necessarily fall in your jurisdiction?
No, I mean, I think you find your place in that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it takes a little bit of time and relationship and comfort, and he's always been open to my prodding questions, ways in which he's making adjustments just in everything, right? Managing stress, putting some things in the rear view, right? I think things we all have to think about. There are chapters in life that bring storms. He's certainly faced it just like everybody in a different way, certainly in an elevated fashion. Those are in the rear view. Sure. And to have come through the health challenges, and honestly, from I think a medical perspective, as the experts would say, he's better and healthier than he's been who knows how long. And just feeling better. So you hear people say this, you don't know that you feel awful until you feel better. And so seeing that, feeling that from him, and him addressing some things as well, that gives me supreme confidence in where that's at.
Cool. And then I also wanted to ask, you mentioned the women and the trajectory of the
Yeah.
attendance and stuff. What is reasonable for growth, and how do you track it? How do you set your goals for there?
Yeah.
How do you aspire to build more seats, that kind of stuff? I mean, is that a pretty active process?
I think it is. I mean, it needs to be.
Right.
And I think at our place, it hasn't been a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it really is anywhere. You know, it even hadn't been that in men's basketball
Right.
the last couple of years. But it certainly hasn't been a straight line around women's basketball. And I think you have to evaluate it in the now, and you have to do your best to extrapolate what that means for the future. So I'm paying this last year to paying more attention to recruiting inroads. Right? Can you get a Samaya, right? And then you want to ask the question: was that an anomaly? Or is that something we can continue to do? Was there elements to that just made it unique that she stayed home, or can we build upon that? And I think what we're seeing, as most recently exhibited with this, 3 state players in the year in this freshman class, really in the game for some big time players over the next couple cycles. I think it's shown itself to be sustainable to be able to attract and retain, importantly, some of the best players in the country to Kansas women's basketball. So real-time assessments, love seeing the growth in the fan base, right? I mean, I think we hit some marks that elevated the floor, and now it's about, hey, how can we keep building upon that?
Travis, you guys announced a sellout for the Kansas State game on Saturday. How vital was that, and how much of a push was it to make that happen?
Yeah, we're new season and first season in a new stadium, right? So how do you manage the season ticket dynamics? Obviously, incredible growth there. How do you manage single game and pricing, and obviously that quote-unquote dynamic pricing? The K-State price point is going to be different than another price point at another regular season game. And so I think I commend the staff because they really have been in real time monitoring and managing that in the right fashion. I think selling out Wednesday before exhibits that we stood the course, so to speak, on managing the price points, on managing the ebb and flow of KU's season, the ebb and flow of K-State's season. I think ultimately it's a win to sell out. We needed to sell out. Everybody felt that. We all expected it to. And I don't have any consternation that it happened Wednesday, the week of, because I think that exhibits and demonstrates that the process was handled right. If you sell out a month ago, you probably did some things to undermine the product or the experience.
Mr. Goff, can you just talk about this position in the sports calendar right now for you, where football games are crucial for us, and also gearing into basketball season? What does that look like for you as AD?
Yeah, I mean, hey, not to mention soccer's going into the home stretch. I mean, amazingly, that Big 12 tourney will be here in just a matter of a couple weeks. So they're finishing out. Volleyball's entering a critical stretch, trying to play themselves into its top 16 and have a chance to host at Horish. It's a fun time of year. I mean, head spinning at times, but if we're being honest about it, which we will be, a lot of things rest on the continued energy and momentum in football and how the rest of the season plays out. So we're trying to allocate time and focus appropriately. This is exhibiting obviously such great excitement around basketball in the conference and basketball at KU in both men's and women's. So you're putting a ton of emphasis on that, try to get fans excited, but at the same time, hey, stay focused on the opportunity at hand, which is in a lot of ways continuing to build the football foundation, and then we turn that focus really quickly to make sure the basketball's, and in particular, again, being honest about it, the Kansas men's basketball is doing the things we need it to be doing, is making the kind of noise that it needs to make, is playing in the environments and on the networks that matter and get maximum exposure, and you're always building for the next year and the next cycle.
The other day, Homer said he's kind of positioning this Fieldhouse match as a way to gauge how much appetite there is for volleyball in the region, how many people you could bring in.
Yep.
I guess, what do you want to see out of this match on Friday, and what will you glean?
Yeah. I mean, I think the expectations are high, right? But they're also tempered a little bit. We haven't done this in some time. We play in one of the best volleyball venues in the country in Horish Family Volleyball Arena. We love it. We won't ever stray from that being the home base. But I think this Friday is going to show us that there's opportunity to weave in 1 to 2 unique matchups in Allen Fieldhouse and leverage, I think, the greatest sports venue in the country. And it's going to demonstrate that we've got a lot more demand and a lot more interest in Kansas volleyball and in the sport of volleyball than what Horace can contain. So you got to be selective about it, but I think we'll come out of Friday going, okay, what's the next one? Can you do 2 in a season? When and where does that make sense? And let's keep building upon that thing. We'll get over 5,000 people as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if it's going to be 6 or 7 or somewhere in that realm. And of course, the students have a lot to say about that as well.
If you host, it would be at Horace, though.
I think that at this juncture, we host will be at Horace. The intimacy of that and the home court advantage, not that Allen would be unbelievable, but let's watch that Friday. Is Allen the same kind of home court advantage for volleyball that Horace is? When you're in Horace, it's 99.3% Jayhawk, and that has a real hand in, I think, outcomes in these matches.
I know you talked this summer about positive first impressions of Jock. What has he shown you since then, and what have you noticed about him?
Yeah, I mean, the command in a subtle presence. Like, Jock is not a guy that's going to be about the biggest voice. And when I watch practice or watch him around the rest of the staff, when Jock speaks, it's going to mean something, right? It might be quiet, maybe to one player, maybe to a couple coaches, but when Jock says something, everybody's going to listen. And you certainly see it, like for me, this has been well documented, but every time I've been to practice, it's usually on the back end. I stick around, talk to Bill and talk to the staff afterward. And to see Jock and Darren out there working one-on-one, you just go, what else? Like, could the formula have been any better? Could the timing have been any better? If you're only going to have Darren for 1 year, could there be a guard, certainly sort of expertise and experience and a perspective that Jock has? I don't think you could have found a better one, and I'm really happy about that, because undoubtedly Darren's gotten better just through the time he's had in the one-on-ones with Jock.
Have you guys been able to move the Middle Tennessee game successfully yet for next year?
We've got 2 options. I don't know that we've locked in either. We're still waiting on a waiver request through the Football Oversight Committee. That request is for week 0, so that's the ultimate objective for us, is to get it and move it and have it approved to be in week 0. We have that approval as the home institution, but our opponent has to get that approval as well, and it's not necessarily as straightforward. We have a backup later in the season that will work for us and will work for Middle Tennessee State. And I think we're within hopefully a couple weeks of finding that out definitively, so we can pin down the schedule. We're playing in London for sure. It's for sure week 3. Just so happens we got to wait to find out if Middle Tennessee State's week 0 or a little bit later in the year.
How'd you feel about how late night came off?
Solid. I think we went back to some bread and butter, probably understood and documented, right? We went away from some things. Wasn't because we didn't think those things, such as an artist, added value. We know that adds value. We certainly know it elevates and enhances some student interest in it, but purely based on some financial principles that we've had to put in place, not profoundly different than a tough decision around the Kansas relays. If you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, you've really got to evaluate where you're allocating that investment. And you guys, we all know this. We're having to allocate profoundly direct to student athletes in rev share. And if that's going to have a major say in your competitive success, then you've got to have higher scrutiny on where you're spending these other kind of buckets. And when you didn't have $20 million budgeted, you have to look at 6-figure, 5-figure spends that probably need to be shifted elsewhere. So long and short of it, I think the staff did a really nice job. I think people that were there had a really good time. It moved. It wasn't a long, drawn-out event. But I think ultimately what we're going to demonstrate is that we're open-minded. We're going to forever evaluate what should the 26 version of that look like. My guess it will evolve and adapt and shift, and we'll get some different perspectives, certainly the student perspective on that as well.
That was Kansas Athletic Director Travis Segala speaking with the media as well at Big 12 Media Day. Always nice to hear some of his thoughts on where things are at with both KU men's basketball and KU women's basketball. Also, we didn't really get a chance to speak much about KU women's basketball, but yeah, it was media day for them as well on Tuesday. And they are also in a position seemingly to maybe make some noise as well this season. Kevin, there was some talk about Jalea Davis being able to dunk at 6'2" as a freshman. So that would be crazy if that were to happen in a game this season. So that could be something to keep an eye on the women's side as well for them also. All right, before we wrap up the show for today, Kevin, you got any final thoughts?
Well, I feel like we should do one thing, Nick, and we talked about it yesterday. In our Kansas State preview episode, there was something that we neglected to do, and that was we always make a prediction. And so I feel like we should use this opportunity to go ahead and put that out there. What do you think?
Okay, yeah. If you tuned into our preview show, towards the end of it, we both had a little bit of our a rant, and that just kind of threw everything off. Like it was like Kevin ranted, and then I was like, all right, this seems like a good place to just end the show and scene. But yeah, we did forget to make our picks. We forgot to make our picks. So yeah, we can do that now if you want. You want to go first? How are you feeling?
Yeah, sure. So in this entire K-State winning streak, Nick, Kansas has never scored 30 points in a single game. And in several of the recent ones, 30 points would have won the game. I think Kansas gets across the finish line. I know initially to start the season, I had KU splitting the rivalry games, but I had them the other way. I thought KU would go into Columbia. I thought because of where it was in the schedule, KU would really hit Missouri with a lot of kind of freaky option stuff that they weren't going to be able to hide after that point. That was going to give them a chance to get across the finish line there. Of course, we all know what happened. Missouri wound up getting like 46 plays out of a 50-play stretch. KU probably said, hey, whatever our game plan was, we're not going to get a chance to get into that now because we're in the third quarter and we've barely seen the football. So all of that is to say, when you look at where Kansas is at right now, when you look at where Kansas State is at right now, I feel better about Kansas winning this game than I did heading into the season. I think heading into the season, we thought Kansas State would be a legitimate Big 12 title game contender, if not an outright Big 12 title contender. Kansas State hasn't been that, and the Wildcats have figured some things out the last few weeks. I thought our pal Ryan Wallace from the Verbal Commitment podcast put it a good way where he said, Kansas State has figured some things out. They haven't figured it out yet. And so I tend to think Kansas is going to get this one, Nick. I think it's going to be really close. I think Kansas gets to 30, and that gets them a close win. And so I'm going to go with the Jayhawks 31, Kansas State 27. And I think that the streak will end on Saturday, and Kansas will end the streak of not scoring 30 points in a game against Kansas State in that same game. How about you?
Man, I don't really know how to feel about this one, Kevin. I be honest. It's I've been back and forth on it. I think in the preseason I picked them to win the game. Boy, I want them to win desperately, but I don't know, man. Like it's weird. With the way the season has unfolded for K-State, not that this game doesn't already matter to them a lot, but like this is all they have left. Like,
yeah,
they every other goal that they set for themselves, they basically can't achieve now, except to keep this streak alive. And I don't know. I can't say that I feel great about it. I'm gonna go with Kansas. I can't sit here and not pick Kansas, even though my mind maybe tells me to a little bit. I'm gonna pick KU. But here's what I'll tell you, Kevin. I actually think that if Kansas is going to win, it's not going to be in a close game. I think if Kansas is going to win, it's going to be them just blowing K-State out of the water. I really think that. If it's a close game, I think K-State will probably end up winning, truthfully, because of what we've seen previously. But if Kansas just comes out and KOs them early and takes it to them, I think maybe they can hang on to win the game. I'm going to pick Kansas 38-24, Kevin. Kansas
Wow. There you go.
Yeah, it's a possession game.
It was interesting because, Laith Marjan is having such a terrific season. I'll knock on wood before the next segment for Lance Leipold specifically. But one of the things that he told us back in back the first time we talked to him, is he's never in his time as a kicker had a game-winning field goal attempt. And that was part of the reason I asked him, we put the clip up earlier this week of Lath, and I asked him, whether he was a big visualization guy, and he is. And I asked him, hey, have you visualized making the game-winning kick and what that would look like? I just have this eerie feeling, Nick, that it could come down to a Lath Marjan kick in this one, and that could be what gets Kansas across. Of course, to your point, when we had BMAC on earlier this week, Brandon McAnderson, one of the reasons they were able to get across the finish line in 04 to break an 11-game losing streak to K-State was the fact that they were able to kind of get that 2-score breathing room. It wound up being 1 score at the end, but it was a close game. And then John Randall breaks this now legendary runoff, scores a touchdown. KU's up 2 scores. K-State goes down to score again, but at that point, it was basically the 2 scores that got them the win. It would not surprise me at all if that's how this one plays out too, where, hey, the final score is, 31-28, 31-27, but KU is actually up 31-20 or something, and then K-State adds something late that adds up to that margin. I do agree with you that it would help Kansas considerably to enter those final 5 minutes in a spot where you have a little bit of breathing room.
I hate how optimistic we both are about this.
I'm not optimistic at all. I'm not lying. I think this has a chance to be a really close game, and in close games, Kansas has typically not made the play or made the wrong play, and Kansas State has typically made the right play. But I also think that this is a situation where I feel like Kansas is out and out better than Kansas State is, and Kansas has been better the last 2 years. I think, actually on the game day that it was played, I think 2 years ago, Kansas just flat had a better team than Kansas State did, but you wound up having a true freshman walk-on quarterback in his very first start. And Cole Ballard, I mean, he sucked it up and was an absolute gamer in that. But, I still feel like had Kansas had either Jason Bean or a healthy Jalen Daniels, that's a 2-touchdown game where Kansas wins that game, the streak is over, etc. And so, no, there's a lot of nervousness there. Kansas hasn't been favored since 2009. This is the first time that Kansas has been favored since that game. And so it feels very strange, doesn't it, Nick? Just sort of coming into this game as, I don't want to say it feels like a trap, but it does feel like it's one of those things where you're just looking around the room and the picture just isn't quite matching up. And so I am not going into this, as like, hey, I am super optimistic about this game. But I do think that, if you're asking me, hey, it's a poker game, the last card's about to get flipped over, who has more draws to win that hand? I think Kansas has more draws than K-State does this year.
My score prediction is more a reflection of my own personal hope, I think, than anything else. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, glad we got that in because we were distracted by some rants at the end of the previous show.
We never get distracted by your rants because they happen more often. Like if I rant, though, it's like, oh my God, we got to cancel the show for a while.
Dude, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, we gotta
get out of here.
We gotta make sure Kevin doesn't say anything that's gonna get us canceled. Like
you don't have a dump button, unfortunately, for this. So
yeah. But yeah, we'll see on Saturday. Again, we will be live post game after the show, after the game. Immediately following the conclusion of it. It's 11 a.m. kick, so it's an early morning game. The weather, by the way, could potentially be a factor. It's supposed to be pretty rainy early in the morning on Saturday. The latest forecast I've seen shows that I don't think it's supposed to be raining during the game itself, but it's going to be rainy, I think, in the morning, so it could put a damper on some of your tailgating activities potentially. But if you are going to be doing that, I commend you because this is a big game. Kansas needs its fans. I echo Lance Leipold's comments from earlier in the week about Kansas needing the fans to be there to create that atmosphere that the Jayhawks may need to push this one across the line. So until next time, he's Kevin Flaherty. I'm Nick Springer. And yeah, we'll talk to you again on Saturday after the KU K-State game. Hopefully it's a happy game. Otherwise, I don't know. We'll see. But we'll talk to you again then, I guess. See ya.